All right, let's talk about something that's, well, absolutely essential: water. More specifically, how you can make sure you and your family have safe, drinkable water when things go sideways.
I mean, think about it for a second. It's a scenario we hope never happens, but being ready is everything. What would you actually do if you turned on the faucet and nothing came out? Let's walk through the game plan.
Let's start with a number, just one number: 1 gallon. According to the CDC, this is the absolute minimum you need per person per day. And that's not just for drinking. That also has to cover your basic hygiene.
Now, before we get into all the cool gadgets and survival techniques, the single most important thing you can do is also the easiest. It all starts with storage. This is your first and your best line of defense.
So the CDC lays out some pretty clear goals for us. At a bare minimum, you want a 3-day supply. But if you can, aiming for a 2-week supply is the gold standard. And remember, this isn't a one-size-fits-all deal. If you live somewhere hot or if someone's pregnant or sick, you're going to need more. Now, the safest bet is always unopened, store-bought bottled water. But if you're storing your own tap water, just make sure you swap it out for a fresh supply every 6 months.
Okay, so what you put your water in is just as critical as the water itself. You've got to stick with food-grade containers. And please, please, never reuse a container that used to hold something toxic like bleach or pesticides. It is just not worth the risk. And, while glass might seem clean, it breaks. In an emergency, you want something durable and shatterproof with a lid that seals up tight.
And before you even think about filling those containers, you've got to sanitize them. It's a super simple process, but you can't skip it. First, give it a good wash with soap and water. Then, you'll mix up a solution, just 1 teaspoon of plain, unscented household bleach in a quart of water. Pour it in, close the lid, and shake it really well so the bleach touches every single inside surface. Let it sit for at least 30 seconds, then pour it all out and just let it air dry completely. That way, you know you're starting clean.
But here's the thing about stored water. Eventually, it runs out. So, what happens then? Well, that's when you have to shift gears and learn a new skill: how to find and treat water from outside sources.
The best way to think about this is like a 2-step security system for your water. First up is filtration. Think of that as the gatekeeper. It stops all the visible gunk. Then comes disinfection. That's your security guard, dealing with the invisible threats. And you absolutely need both.
All right, let's tackle step 1, filtration. Basically, this is the get all the junk out phase. We're talking about physically removing all that visible stuff, the dirt, the leaves, any sediment, so you're left with water that looks much clearer and is ready for that all-important second step. You can actually build a surprisingly good filter with some pretty basic materials. The secret is all in the layers, and you build it from the bottom up. So at the very bottom, you've got a cloth or a coffee filter to hold everything in. Right on top of that is the hero of the whole system: activated charcoal. Then a layer of sand, then small pebbles, and finally some larger pebbles at the very top to catch the big stuff first.
Now I have to stop here for a super important warning. And listen closely. You cannot use regular barbecue charcoal. As Primal Survivor points out, those briquettes you use for grilling are packed with chemicals that can actually make the water toxic. You have to use activated charcoal. It's totally different.
So what makes activated charcoal so special? It all comes down to a process called adsorption. And yeah, that's adsorption with a D, not absorption. It's not soaking things up like a sponge. Instead, the activated charcoal has a massive surface area that acts like a sticky magnet. Contaminants like pesticides literally cling to the surface and get trapped. It's pretty amazing.
And what's so cool about this is that our little homemade filter, it works on the exact same principles as the huge industrial systems that cities use to treat our water. I mean, look at this diagram of a professional slow sand filter. It's the same idea. Graded layers of gravel and sand doing the heavy lifting.
But in those big professional filters, something kind of magical happens over time. A living biological layer forms on top of the sand. It's called a Schmutzdecke, which is just German for dirt cover. This gooey film of algae and good bacteria actually becomes the most important part of the filter, actively eating up pathogens and purifying the water.
But even the absolute best filter isn't foolproof. Tiny little things like viruses and some bacteria, they can slip right through. And that is why step 2, disinfection, is totally non-negotiable. This is where we kill the germs you can't see.
So when it comes to disinfection, the World Health Organization basically gives us 3 main options. Boiling is the old standby. It's super effective, but it uses up a lot of fuel.
You've got chemical options like chlorine, which are cheap but can leave a taste, and then there's SODIS, or solar disinfection. It uses the power of the sun, so it's free, but it does take time and you need clear sky.
Now, let's talk about that last one, SODIS, because a really common question comes up here. Is it actually safe to leave a plastic water bottle out in the sun for hours on end? Won't nasty chemicals leak into the water?
It's a great question, and scientists have definitely looked into it. A study back in 2008 in the Water Research Journal looked at this exact issue, and they found that the risk from any chemicals leaching out of those PET bottles was negligible. So yeah, the science says it's a safe and effective method.
Okay, that was a lot of information, I know. We've gone from storing water in your closet all the way to disinfecting it with sunlight. So let's boil it all down into a really simple, clear action plan that you can actually remember.
Look, if you remember anything from all this, remember this 3-step plan. It's that simple. First, store. Your stored water is always going to be your safest, easiest option. Second, filter. If you have to get water from an outside source, filter out all that gunk. And third, and this is the one you can never, ever skip, you have to disinfect. Kill those invisible threats before you ever take a sip. Store, filter, disinfect. That's it. That's the whole game plan.
And that really just leaves us with one final, and honestly, the most important question of all. When you think about these steps and you look around at your own home, is your family really ready? Because a solid plan for clean water, it's not just about surviving, it's about being resilient. Thanks for watching.